Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life.
All right, hats.
Are we started? sorry. I was ready. There we go.
All right, welcome to Two Bit Idiots. Actually, it feels what episode 16? I think
16.
This will be
16 because 15 are now on YouTube.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, sorry, that's just another thing.
It feels like it's been a little while since our last one.
It has.
Why is that?
Because we're on Ben's.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay.
So we didn't manage to do anything last week, so
Yeah,
sorry
yeah,
if anybody
okay.
was actually waiting, but well, we weren't there.
All right. Well, here
Thanks,
we go.
man.
We are lucky enough to have Wizard of Oz, the man himself.
Yeah. Australian royalty.
And not only that, but he's actually in person in Hatz's garage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good, eh? Real people in real life.
Oh, it's weird.
I never knew it was a thing.
Yeah, it's the fucking best.
Yeah.
Hello, mate.
So I think this one is 3-bit idiots.
3-bit idiots. Yeah, that's pretty good. Well, thanks for coming over. So we've just had a fantastic barbecued meal from Hats.
Well, I was being monitored when I was cooking the steak, so you tell me.
Well,
The veggies were okay. The steak was a bit overdone.
no. It was lovely.
Okay.
It was lovely.
Was
Mate, my belly's full and happy.
okay. Good man.
All right, what do you want to talk about?
I don't know. We don't really have a.
Let's talk about Bitcoin.
Yeah, oh, good idea.
Yeah. Okay. Go for that. Let's do a price stamp. Where are you going?
Well, it's not 100,000.
No, it's tanked. So what's actually happened? We have.
Do you mean 0.01?
Yeah. There you go.
0.01 of a million, you muppet.
Oh yeah, there you go. Wait, I was just staring blankly
Actually,
at him.
0.01 is 10,000.
Yeah, 0.1.
So,
Yeah. Oh, who's the Muppet?
yeah. That's because you boys have been feeding me whiskey already.
It's all good. Right. Where are we going, Wiz? Where do you want a price stamp for?
Price stamp?
Yeah. Pick a country.
Who cares about price stamp? Give us
You
a
want
block.
a
Give
block?
us a block
height.
height.
Okay, yeah, nice.
Okay. Hang on. That's gonna now have to. You talk amongst yourselves. I'll find out.
I got nothing. You just called me a Muppet.
Right, we're on Bitbo. So 711-366.
711-366.
Well, Brendo's going to get a tattoo with his
And
block.
you know what? That's a new all-time high.
It's an old time.
Yep.
I just happened 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Maybe less.
I wonder what will happen in the next 10 minutes.
Brendo's going to get a tattoo with his block number somewhere.
Well, I'd like to. I'd like to get my I guess my Genesis block in a way. Well, the block that I first bought Bitcoin. Just that number I want tattooed somewhere. I think.
That's not a bad idea.
Oh yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very nice.
Better than a barcode or a QR code or whatever or a butterfly on my ass.
Yeah.
That's not something I want to think about.
So I went to look.
At my ass?
No, yeah. It's a nice butterfly though. I went to look and so I know my very first purchase and I know how much Bitcoin it was, but I can't check. Well, I probably can check back to get the transaction, but I only have the amount, and I did a search on the amount, and it came up there was only one transaction with that output amount, so I figured it was mine, but the date didn't tie up. So with when I thought was my first purchase. So why would that be? Any ideas?
Yeah, probably because you left it on the exchange for 2 years before you withdrew it.
That's definitely definitely true. But why would that? No. It was earlier. It was earlier than I thought.
I'm only joking.
Was this an exchange or a broker?
So I'll tell you, it was CoinJar.
Okay.
Not a fan of CoinJar.
No.
But that's where it was.
But
so I know the amount in Bitcoin that I bought. So I went and recently did a try and search back, but it seemed to be like an earlier purchase than.
Yeah, but remembering that when you buy on an exchange, there's no chain transaction.
No,
It's all just an internal book entry, and you're hoping that they have the Bitcoin to send you when you withdraw it.
Indeed.
Yeah, and that's why you only own Bitcoin when you've got it into your wallet. Until then, it's a purchase in progress.
Yeah,
it's an IOU.
That's a good point.
It's an IOU.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll try and work it out because what point is I don't know.
So you
my
want my
first...
tattoo is basically what you're saying. You're
Well,
steal
we're gonna
my idea.
we're gonna have matching tattoos, except that mine is going to be earlier, which is going to be way better than yours, right? Right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna get mine on my forehead.
Yeah, but the nice thing is if he's gonna do that, then you'll be able to jump on OXT and you'll be able to do a little bit of chain analysis.
Oh, so you're already way above me.
Yeah.
What's OXT? I genuinely am the idiot here. What's OXT?
Oh, there's 3 idiots here. Don't try and just take the label for yourself, you greedy bastard. So it's funded by Samurai, and they've built some great open source chain analysis. Oh, I won't call it chain analysis because it's a filthy stinking surveillance firm, but Bitcoin transaction analysis. Open source software, so you can look at the graphs and look at the flow of transactions in UTXOs.
Yep.
And do a lot of mapping. And the guys have done some absolutely fantastic work and did a lot of work on the what was the big Chinese one that waffled about last year? Not Prime Coin. It was.
Oh God, sorry. Jumping in. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's so many things, so many.
Yeah. So basically, transactional analysis.
Okay.
And open source, really worth a look.
Really? Okay.
Okay, there you go. Something else to do. Something else to my to-do list that never gets done.
All right. Well, what do we actually want to go into tonight? So we've been sitting up there for like 2.5 hours chatting away. So basically, we were having dinner. Everyone was chatting about Bitcoin, and probably every 20 minutes, I'm like, "Can we get started? This should be recorded. Let's go."
It is the non-recording conversations are the ones that should be recorded.
Oh, I know.
Like, people would be genuinely interested in a lot of what was spoken about there.
Yeah.
But we're never got the microphones in front of our face.
No. So what did we just talk about?
Well, there's 2 things we should definitely talk about.
Yep.
So the reason why Wiz is here is we are sort of on the way through to Murrurundi, where we're going to have the Bitcoin Bush Bash in about a week or so. So we want to talk about that, and also we want to at least talk a bit about security.
Yep.
Maybe even estate planning if you're interested in talking about that.
Yeah, a little bit.
But yeah, I don't mind what order we do that in. We do whatever we do.
Well,
where do you want to go?
Well, let's talk security. I think we should probably maybe finish on talking about the Bush Bash.
Okay, go serious and then go fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So I suppose as far as different levels of security for Bitcoiners or people that buy Bitcoin. So obviously people that are new to it or amateurs or whatever, that they're quite happy to buy Bitcoin and just think they own it on an exchange, which they clearly don't. Then you can go to a multi-sig arrangement. I suppose from your angle, can you kind of spell out what you think is obviously the best? Potentially why people should or shouldn't hold their Bitcoin on an exchange, that kind of thing. So,
yeah, sure. So I guess I see Bitcoin security very much as a journey, and I'll preface it with saying having Bitcoin is better than not having Bitcoin. So that's always the starting point. So if you've gone to a KYC exchange and signed up and bought yourself a bit of Bitcoin, that's better than being a pre-coiner. However, you don't actually have the Bitcoin until it's in a wallet you can control. So usually the first and simplest sort of wallet is the software wallet on your phone. So a year or two back, I wrote a guide on
Green
Wallet.
Yeah.
Just a simple setup guide, and I wrote it with 2 or 3 people in mind. One of my sons, my father at the time, who was in his late 80s, and a couple of friends on Twitter who'd reached out. They had Bitcoin on exchange and had never taken it off the exchange. The number was going up. They were feeling increasingly nervous about that. And couldn't quite make the step. And so I wrote that guide to try and make it as as simple as possible to set that up. So that's kind of the first step. Is generally no cost because the software is free, as all Bitcoin free and open source software, and should always remain so. And you're probably comfortable keeping the sort of amount of money on your phone that you'd keep as cash in your wallet. So that depends on every person. So that might be $50, it might be a couple of $100, it might even be 1,000, or maybe even a couple of thousand if you're comfortable keeping that. The next one after that, the next simplest one after that, is typically a hardware wallet. So there's a lot of great options now. Cold Card, Keystone, Trezor.
Jade. Have you looked at the Jade much?
I have looked at the Jade. I haven't used it enough to recommend it. I've used Ledger as well. Ledger, they seem all right, but their security practices are abominable in terms of protecting their customer privacy. So I wouldn't personally recommend them. And one of the greatest things we've seen, especially this year, and I think it actually emerged last year, was Seed Signer. So it's a do-it-yourself model. So that tends to be once you're well and truly down the rabbit hole, and you're thinking about supply chain attacks and things like that. But Trezors, Cold Cards, and Ledgers, all pretty easy to get, pretty easy to set up. Catan at Ministry of Nodes and Ben over at BTC Sessions both have done excellent YouTube guides, and the vendors themselves have good setups and options. So the difference between the software wallet on your phone and the hardware wallet device is the hardware wallet device is disconnected from the internet when it's turned off. So you've got the keys to your Bitcoin wallet. You've got the keys to your Bitcoin on a device that's no longer connected to the internet. So you've removed a whole bunch of attack vectors. Now, on your mobile phone, by definition, it's connected to the internet all the time. So is it likely that people can get hacked on their mobile phone? It doesn't seem likely, but then you read about the various hacking groups that have zero-day exploits onto mobile phones, including Apple. It's just about managing your risk. So small amounts of Bitcoin on your phone, larger amounts of Bitcoin onto a hardware wallet.
Yeah, okay.
And that's your starting point.
Yeah.
Once you get to the point where you start thinking about, gee, there's a lot of Bitcoin on my hardware wallet, or there's a bit of Bitcoin on my hardware wallet, but hey, 8 years has gone by and that $1,000 punt I took on buying 10 Bitcoin when it was $100, I'm not really comfortable. What happens if the house burns down and all those sorts of things? And that's where multi-sig comes into its own. So that's the idea, which is almost unique to Bitcoin, that you can set up a whole bunch of keys. Typical configurations are 2 of 3 or 3 of 5. And they're kind of like you get out of jail free. So you set up 3 keys, but you only need 2 to be able to spend. So if the dog eats one of the Trezors, or the kids get dad's fancy USB key and try to reformat it and eventually can't, so they try and pull it apart to see how it works, and in the end it's stupid anyway, so they hit it with a hammer and put it in the bin. You've still got to get out of jail free. In a 3 of 5, you've got 2 get out of jails free. So those things are not without a bunch of different complexities, and Michael Flaxman has written an outstanding guide about Bitcoin. It's called 10xing Your Bitcoin Security. Stefan Livera has done a couple of great interviews with Michael where he digs into that, and the guide itself has a sort of a walkthrough, and he explains very carefully about the strengths of multi-sig. there's kind of a middle ground between single sig hardware wallets and multi-sig, and that's a space called collaborative custody. So that's where you've got a company who will help you set it up and who will look after one of the keys for you. So in a 2 of 3, they're holding one key, which means they can't do anything. They can't get at your Bitcoin. You still control 2 of the 3 keys, but if the dog does get one of the hardware devices, that's okay. You can ring your buddies up, and they'll sign, and you can move into a new fresh setup. The 2 main companies that do that are Casa and Unchained Capital. The trade-off with doing collaborative custody is that the collaborative custody company has visibility to what's called the master public key, the XPub, which means that by definition they will know all the transactions in that multi-sig wallet, and they will know all the addresses. So there's a like everything in Bitcoin, it's trade-offs.
Yeah.
But you get that helping hands, which particularly when you're new, is super helpful in building your confidence.
Yeah, it's a peace of mind thing too, I'd imagine.
It's very much a peace of mind thing. I personally used Casa early on. I could see that multi-sig was good. I've been in IT for 35 years, and as I wrote in that setup guide for the Green Wallet, the fuck-up fairy has been my constant companion. She hovers around my shoulder and looks for when I'm not paying attention, and she waves her magic wand, and then I'm left to clean up the mess. and I've always remembered that she's there, and especially when I came to Bitcoin. So for me, having a bit of Bitcoin and having collaborative custody was a really good middle ground to get that extra security that multi-sig gives. Without, at the time, I wasn't technical enough or confident enough with Bitcoin to take that step. So I guess in summary, I'd say it's a journey. Don't feel stressed out that you've kind of go to self-sovereign multi-sig, running your own node on day one. You kind of get there over time.
Yeah.
So you're saying the fuck up fairy, which I kind of like.
It's great. Fuck up fairy.
But I think the fuck up fairy is actually a good thing, right? Because what that proves is that you're tinkering and trying to work out what you want to, how you improve your setup, but you're doing it yourself. Right, you're actually. So I've made plenty of mistakes too. So I always feel like I'm not technically competent enough to do the next bit. So because I'm not a tech guy, right? So, and I always think, oh, that's too hard for me, and that holds me back from making my setup better. I know it should be better, but it holds me back. Okay, but every time I start to do the next thing, I always get it wrong, like always. But if you're doing it with tiny amounts or testnet, it's okay, right? And the amount like you could sit and listen to the 3 of us rabbit on a podcast, which is thanks for joining us. But there's nothing that you could do better than find one of Ben's guides or Catan's guides or your green guide and just walking yourself through it step by step and realizing what's actually happening, because I guarantee you when it does click into place for you, you'll be like, oh my god, why? Well, firstly, why was I not doing this before? Because it is possible, right? It is possible, even for people like me. And I'm like, oh god, why was I not? But the tinkering and giving it a go is really important. And yeah, I can't stress that enough to people that are listening.
Yeah, I'd absolutely, I'd co-sign all of that. And whilst I'm a voracious reader and listener of podcasts, I know myself that I learn by doing. And Yeah, like you, Hats, I've had to pay some tuition fees, and that literally is how I think of them. But again, it's like
That's a good way of thinking about it. Actually. Like
yeah. But you think about it, it's about managing risk. You go, oh, I'm doing something new, right? I remember even with the helping hands of CASA and setting up collaborative custody early on, I still did that. Okay, put a little bit in. Okay, now what's the first thing I'm going to do after that? I'm going to take it out so that I know how to get it out. So I took it back out again. And then you're looking at the fees and you're going, well, that was stupid. Of course it was going to work.
yes, that's exactly what you think.
And then you go, okay, but that's good. Now I know it works.
Yeah.
And so now and then bang, that's where there's a chunk of Bitcoin now, and that's all good. And then you go, oh, now I've done it. That wasn't so hard.
Yeah, but also those fees that you're paying are going to help maintain secure the network. They're actually okay. You don't want to give away your sats for instance, right? But they are actually going to somebody who is contributing to another part of the ecosystem, right? And actually making the whole thing better for you.
Oh yeah. I'm not complaining about paying Bitcoin mining fees, transaction fees. That's absolutely fine. And as you say, that is what incentivizes the network. And sometimes, Jesus, I hope Katan's not listening to this. Sometimes I've even paid more than 1 sat per byte.
Oh dear.
What?
I know. I know. I'm an impatient high time preference guy.
I've sort of come to the thinking now that if I'm here forever, I can wait 6 hours or whatever it's going to take. I'll just wait now.
I think I did have one transaction where I did the fully cheap one and it didn't.
Oh, you were so the mempool was full.
But it gets bumped or something, doesn't it?
Yeah. So if you think back to say March, April this year, when the mempool was constantly full.
Yeah.
So the default mempool size is 300 megabytes.
Yeah.
And unless you change that, what happens as the mempool fills up and gets to that full default size, then the minimum fee rate for sending on the new transactions rises.
Yeah.
So let's say the minimum fee is now 5 sats per byte.
Yeah.
And your, let's say, Katana, I don't want to pick on him per se, but let's say you're Matt Odell, and you pop a 1 sat per byte transaction, per V byte transaction in, but the referral minimum fee is now 5 sats.
Mm.
It goes on it's on your node, but no one else will pass that on because they go, dude, come on, get real.
Tight ass.
Yeah.
Tight ass. We're not interested. We're already full with people who are paying real money.
Paying more. Yeah. Okay, I see.
Yeah, but then that's interesting because as the mempool then starts to clear, as it did in the middle of the year, for which I lost a bet. So I've made 2 bets. No, 1 bet last year, 1 bet this year. I've lost the bet this year. The bet this year I made with another Bitcoiner, and the bet was that the mempool would not clear this year.
Oh, really?
And the bet, I only have 1 wager, and that is a bottle of single malt whiskey of the winner's choice.
Oh, wow. So what did the winner...
What can we bet on? I like this.
What did the winner choose?
We're having a whiskey right now.
Yeah, we are. So I've made 2 bets. One was with this foreign Bitcoiner who I'm hoping to see next year in Europe. He's got plenty of time to think about a beautiful bottle of single malt that I'll be shelling out for. There is a little caveat.
Have a look at Eiley. Look at Eiley. Really good stuff in Eiley.
The little caveat is that we have to open it together.
Oh, that's all right. That's
Yeah,
good.
so
Win-win. That's a win-win
Yeah,
bet.
it is a win-win. And the other one, which was public on Twitter, was with Chris Espley, who's now in the UK. It's whether or not Bitcoin's market cap exceeds gold before Bitcoin hits $1 million.
Oh, because gold's going to run as well. Who's on what side of the?
So
bet?
I'm on the side that Bitcoin's market cap will exceed gold's market cap before Bitcoin is $1 million.
100%. I mean, you're going to win that one.
Yeah.
I'm very confident.
Yeah, and I'm delighted. I'm delighted to see the news articles about money flowing out of gold ETFs and into Bitcoin ETFs.
Yeah.
That's all good. How's it going there, Chris? But yeah, there's no.
Sorry, let me back up a little bit. So if we're
we've wandered off from Bitcoin security to mempools to
gamble,
to bets,
just
to whiskey,
bets.
and to standard degenerate Bitcoin.
That's good. We'll go back there. But let's just kind of roll it back a second. So if somebody is listening and they have just bought their first Bitcoin, in the last week, it is none of us here are recommending.
There's no such thing as a Bitcoin.
No such thing as a Bitcoiner.
No, there's no such thing as a Bitcoin. Right? There's the Bitcoin network and the Sats.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Okay.
Because you don't have accounts, you have UTXOs, and UTXOs are made of Sats.
Yes.
Oh, fair point.
And what we call a Bitcoin is only a nominal 100 million Sats.
It's just a group of Sats.
It's just a group of Sats. It's a very big
group of Sats.
It's a big fucking cluster of Sats.
Yeah.
But it's a group of Sats.
Yeah. Okay.
Sats
okay.
is
I'll
the
roll
standard.
back.
Sats is the standard.
We'll go back to. We'll get to domains.
Sorry,
in a
Adam.
second.
We're not going millisats, mate.
But all right. So somebody's just bought their first Sat. Well, yeah, the first Sats in the last week.
Big handful of Sats.
Big
Happy
handful.
days.
Right. But none of us here are suggesting that the first thing you should be thinking about is multi-sig security of your Sats, or necessarily even single sig on hardware wallet, or maybe not even green. The first thing you should be thinking about is buying some Sats in the first place, right?
Absolutely.
And as your number grows, either as you buy more or as time passes, in terms of what that number is worth, you should be increasing your security.
Yeah, and that's a really good example of one of the many interlocking incentives in Bitcoin. So Bitcoin incentivizes you to learn about Bitcoin security because as the number goes up, all of a sudden the $1,000 that you were quite comfortable sitting on your laptop, which is in the top of the wardrobe, now 8 years later, and you haven't opened the laptop for a while, and you're getting night sweats because there's several hundred Bitcoin on there, and you haven't looked at it for a few years.
Yeah, and so was it Michael Flaxman that came with? Who is it with the you should think of your security as if Bitcoin is 10 times the price that it is today
now.
Because it's going to be.
Yeah.
So who was that? Michael Flaxman?
That's a good.
I think Flaxman said it, but but I think I've heard that multiple times.
Yeah, I think it's great.
I think Rodolfo said that multiple times. Certainly, I've heard it from Stefan and from Catan and many others. So it's a pretty good maxim, simply because Bitcoin can go up very, very quickly. A face melting rip.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, completely. So you should, but also it is not the case where you have to be thinking, well, I have got, 1 Bitcoin or whatever you got, or 100 million Sats, apologies. And you have to think of the security level for all of those 100 million Sats. You could have, 2% on a Lightning wallet. You could have 3% on exchange. You could have, whatever, I'm going to give my numbers wrong here, 5% on a hot wallet. And, where are we up to? About to 10. So 40% on, a cold card. And then the 50% in a multi-sig arrangement with Casa or Unchained. You could have, but you mentioned something over dinner, which was the problem between the computer and the person. Tell me your acronym again.
PEBCAC. P-E-B.
Catchy.
Yeah, K-A-C.
But go on, it's good though.
Yeah.
Sounds gross.
So it's an IT support acronym. Problem exists between keyboard and chair. PEBCAC. So also known as an ID10T error, which is, if you write that down.
Oh, right. I see. There were two of them, two bit of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Well, 3 of them.
Three
yeah. Exactly. So, security, complexity is the enemy of security. So I'm a big fan of keep it simple, stupid. So I think you're better to go for one well thought out set of cold storage. Because I can tell you, as an older Bitcoiner, your memory definitely will get less reliable as you get older. I I've got a few older Bitcoiner friends, and they back me up on that. So I'm in pretty comfortable ground there. So that idea about, ensuring that you do write down your seed phrase. Sorry, Newt. I know, Knut. I know we disagree on this one. And Armin. There are some who advocate just committing your seed phrase to memory. I'm always reminded of the story of my dad, who, when he was a young man, 16, 17, 18, which was shortly after the Second World War finished in the UK. So horrendous petrol rationing. So the roads were empty, which was great when you were a young bloke with a bunch of mates who used to like to go cycling. So they'd be able to cycle all over the place, no cars, fantastic. And he had a huge off, and woke up in hospital. Could not remember his name.
Oh, wow.
Did not recognise his parents. Nothing.
Wow.
Now it all came back over the period of a month or so. But that's always it's always stuck with me about the risk of trying to remember things or using that as a reliable source. So it's not necessarily reliable. If you listen to Alex Gladstein, and we sit in a nice stable Western democracy, with ostensibly a solid rule of law and valid property rights, blah blah blah, and most of the world is not like that. Most of the world is very different. The majority of the world does not have access to banking services and so on and so forth. And if you listen or read or watch some of the things that Peter McCormack's recorded down in South America, some of the stories that Alex Gladstein tells about different parts of the world, there's absolutely a case where if you're trying to leave a jurisdiction and go to a better place, damn, the ability to remember 12 words and take your wealth with you without any trace of paper, devices, anything that can be seized, absolutely wonderful.
Priceless.
But as a standard cold storage mechanism, personally, I wouldn't touch it with a barge pole.
Yeah.
If you were to, so we're in Australia. If you were to move to France, and you wanted to take obviously your Bitcoin with you, how practical? Have you ever thought about that? How practically would you do that? Would you take the devices in your case, or how you would have your seed phrase knocked into a washer, or what would you do? Like, I mean, yes, if you've got a 2 or 3 set up and you've got your third party that's, say, Casa, you don't have to worry about them, but you need to get one of the other two at least, or maybe you just take one of the other two with you in your case, because one of the other two is no good to anybody.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I remember having this discussion. It's one of the paradoxes of Bitcoin that it exists everywhere. Like your Bitcoin, your UTXOs are on every single node in every single country of the world. Yet at the same time, it exists nowhere.
Yep.
But how would you move the keys from one country to another? Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I haven't really thought about that.
Like, because
do you mean actual devices, hardware devices?
Well, it's going to depend on your security setup.
So currently, Brando, right? So you've got, let's say you're in Australia, you've got a job here, and you apply for a job in some other country. You get that job, and let's say you're a hardware wallet single sig guy. You've got 12 words, 24 words, whatever you have, and you need to. Well, maybe you memorize them. Yeah. Memorize them is probably the best way if you're able to.
No.
But if you don't want to do that, you will need to carry your words with you to physically take them with you, or just to get them there somehow.
Yeah.
If you were a multi-sig guy, you could maybe take one lot over and rely on your third party to have the other one, and then leave one here. And then bring the other one over separately as well, or leave it here.
You only need 2, because then you'd do a new setup and you'd move.
Oh, of course you would, right?
And another way is, and this is where things like passphrases are super useful. So if you set up a wallet with your 12 or 24 words, and you've created the entropy either by dice or some other mechanism, and you've got that base wallet, you can then add a passphrase. But you can add a passphrase. You could add multiple passphrases.
Okay.
So you could have one wallet, and you could have 3 different passphrases. And the passphrase may be a single word. It may be a little child's nursery rhyme. It may be something that is evocative or easily remembered for you. So let's say, Hats, you've got 3 of those, 3 different passphrases.
Yep.
And they may be the writing on your cap, like "I'm a giant big baller," for example. That might
I love
be
Ethereum. Is that what it says?
I do have an infection. Shouldn't laugh at a man.
I think this is the point.
Yeah, do that. Yeah, because I'm empty too, please. Thanks.
So that base wallet becomes a new wallet with the addition of a passphrase. So you could take the seed phrase with you, knowing that if it was seized, then and restored, that in the base wallet there could be 100,000 sats. But that same seed phrase with the addition of the 25th word or the passphrase becomes a whole different wallet.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's where the guts of your stash may be.
Gotcha.
And then the second passphrase, again, completely separate wallet again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Etc.,
So the
etc.
idea of being compromised in whatever way by a government or customs or a person with a $5 wrench, the idea of having a single wallet with multiple passphrases, one having a big amount on it, another having like your 100,000 sats, which in the future will be big. But if you give somebody access to 100,000 sats, you give them the 100,000 sats, and you keep walking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. But
And then you worry about the other stuff. You get a new setup when you get wherever you're going.
yeah, so there was a Bitcoiner up in Yeppoon who gave a really excellent rundown on passphrases and how to use them, and the various values and I'd love him to give that again. Unfortunately, he won't be able to be down at Murrurundi this time. But the thing to remember about passphrases is they effectively become a 2 of 2. So
Explain that, sorry.
So let's say you've created your wallet and you've put your decoy 100,000 sats in that wallet.
Yep.
And then you've added your passphrase, which creates a new wallet, and you put all of your sats in there, the whole million sats. Happy days. Now you forget your passphrase, or you lose your passphrase.
Yep.
You've got 100,000 sats. The million sats is not recoverable.
Yeah.
So it becomes you've got to have both things now.
Yeah.
So you've got to have the seed phrase, the 12 or the 24 words, and the passphrase.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a 2 of 2. Thought about the other way, the passphrase protects your seed words. So now, if your seed phrase, which is stamped on a steel plate, or stamped into washers and threaded on a bolt and buried in the back garden, or in every bloke's favourite safe place, the sock drawer. Yeah. I can
Welcome
see
to
you
my house. Welcome
Yeah.
to my...
Have you been sniffing through my drawers? No, and nor do I want to.
Yeah, no, it's a good
Yeah.
point.
So the passphrase actually protects the seed phrase, if you think about it that way.
Yeah. So if somebody is just playing that one out, if somebody is putting a passphrase in front of their seed phrase, that you actually want to be storing those two things separately also.
Correct.
The seed phrase and the passphrase.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But then it's just you get into. It's just there's no correct answer here. It's just what's correct is correct for you.
Yeah.
And as good as you can cope with, I guess.
And manage.
And yeah.
Manage.
Yep.
So if you are somebody who is in your, as you've spoken about before, Brindle, your forever home, that's kind of that. It sort of helps you a little bit because you can think more and long term, I guess. because you're thinking you're going to be there for a long time. So maybe there's somewhere in your back garden you're comfortable with burying your stuff. But if you're a guy who's, you know, or girl who's renting a house for 3 months, it's a different problem that you have, right? You're in terms of what you do with past phrases, seed phrases.
Aren't people
you know,
like geocaching, you know, bloody open dimes and remember at
What's
Bush-
geocaching?
Oh, when you it's I think a lot of people will share I don't know, a little treasure box, right? And so you can actually go like hiking and stuff, and there's geocaching apps that go, oh, you go here and there's a thing, and you basically either put something in or you sign it. It's just a mechanism for people to go, hey, I found this treasure.
Oh,
You know,
there is
in old school we call that hiding.
yeah. There is a guy that we have met,
minus the GPS.
who is
Yeah.
who's probably an early Bitcoiner, has quite a lot of wealth.
Well, that was at Marundi.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was trying not to dox him, but okay.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, no,
There were 30 dudes there.
don't dox it.
I'm certainly not going to tell you who it is, but what he was doing was creating like treasure maps, essentially, like he was a pirate. And he was creating and his idea is in the will he's going to leave treasure maps for his, you know, kids or grandkids or whatever. I think that's incredible.
Yeah,
you get
good
guys
fun.
with too much time on their hands, obviously doing well, but it's, you know, fair enough. But
That's awesome. You know what else was actually I found somehow amazing and intimidating at the same time? He said to both of us, he asked us, he goes, so have you guys, you know, got your final position on Bitcoin? I'm like, the fuck no. He's like,
you'll
yeah,
never.
no. And he's like, I think I'm good. I'm like, what?
I don't believe anybody's ever going to have their final position.
Oh, man.
Michael
He said
Saylor doesn't have his final position.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
So if he doesn't, I don't.
Well, we don't actually know how Michael Strahler's going. When MicroStrategy bought, because they're different, right? He did disclose that he bought before MicroStrategy,
Which he would.
and you know, fair play. You know, would he buy 10,000 or something? And we'd all love to have that, but yeah, they're all aspirational goals.
Work hard, mate. Work hard.
Yeah. Just stay humble and stack sats.
Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, all the buyers from MicroStrategy are MicroStrategy. It's not Michael Saylor's.
True.
And people talk about the two things interchangeably, but
They do,
It is
they do,
it is
yeah.
a public company.
Yeah.
Well, he is still a man who's got a company that's kicking off 30 million, 40 million a year.
Yeah.
So
he's the controlling shareholder.
yes.
As well.
So you know, some people say he's taking risk, but he's not really taking any risk. I don't. Well, very well. Depends how you see the risk, but you know, he's
Well,
still.
his risk the risk from his perspective was I'm sitting on $500 billion worth of cash and it's a melting ice cube.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's still
to
probably
use
one of
his
the best
analogy.
analogies. It's probably one of the best analogies I've heard.
It's very
the
simple.
fiat- the
It's very
fiat
simple
system,
and
yeah.
it's very accurate.
Oh, man.
Well, and
A
I keep,
melting ice cube.
Yeah, but I keep bringing this up. But you know, with the gentleman we spoke to from Turkey, have you seen it? So the published rates on inflation in Turkey are 19%, and what he said was his personal inflation was 40 to 45% per annum, and right now it's probably gone even worse, just in the last month.
Just
I
in the
read
light-
Apple have suspended sales or something. Like they're not selling in Turkey because of
because
the
they
inflation.
can't, because they can't convert the money back
No.
quickly enough,
No.
probably.
No.
Yeah.
It's that is literally the running from your work to the bakery to get bread.
Yeah.
So your money's
Yeah.
worth it when you get to the bakery. Like it's frightening.
It is.
It is, and Turkey's a really important place to pay attention to.
Agreed.
I've been to Turkey a couple of times. I've done some business in Turkey. You know, I think it's a wonderful place, super interesting. Istanbul is just extraordinary. If you ever get the chance to go there and explore, it's just a wonderful slice to centuries and centuries of history, and you know, the intersection between the East and the West.
Mm-hmm. Just geographically interesting.
You know, but looking back to the book of you know, When Money Dies, the parallels of, you know, when the money printing is getting out of hand, everyone thinks they're getting rich because asset prices are going up. And you look around and you go, like, all three of us, you know, have a home for our families, and the value of those is just going notch. You know, it's notching up, and it's just like, oh, this is awesome. You know, we could go to the bank and borrow some more money. Well, of course, that's what they want you to do. But, you know, so if you've got assets, it feels like you're getting richer and richer.
Yeah.
For my kids who are, you know, young adults, you know, they're looking at it completely differently.
Yeah.
Yes.
And their view of it is, we will never ever be able to buy into that.
Yeah.
You know, the idea of borrowing $1 million, which is the average house price in Canberra now, the idea of borrowing $1 million to buy a starter place, you know, that's just absurd.
Yeah.
You know, it's unachievable.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this. You're actually going to get a situation where, regardless of whether people like Bitcoin or not, it's getting to the point where, frankly, all of us are just getting older, right? And if assets continue to run...
And wiser.
Wiser, yeah.
And wiser.
Speak for yourself.
Well, not just wiser, but more handsome.
Thank you. Now you can speak for both of us. But it's going to get to the point where... Well, it's not, in fact, no, it's not going to get to the point. It has got to the point where older people who own the assets, so some of those lucky people or those lucky kids that will have those assets passed down to them if we're still in this situation, right? You know, we're still in a fiat standard and we're still got house prices or asset prices rising that we passed down. So some of the new generation will have assets passed to them. Not that they want those assets particularly because somebody's, you know, passed on type thing, but that's what will happen. But for everybody else, you're not buying a fraction of a house. You're not buying 4% of a house. Well, maybe some people argue with the mortgage, you might be, but you're really not. You're not. So they will go and buy. They might go and buy Apple stock. They might go and buy, you know, Netflix stock, or they might go and buy a cryptocurrency. I hate to use the term, but and that's what's going to happen. They're not going to. The super high value assets are now out of reach for a generation, a full generation of people.
Yeah, so there's a couple of interesting things there, Hats. And a friend of mine, Hodl on Comrades on Twitter, he's added to the Bushbash website, and we can come back to that later, bushbash.info, bitcoinbushbash.info. There is a section in there on Australian property prices. So he has pulled out the median property price for all Australian capital cities and the state regional average price, which is obviously lower than the capital. But he's done it for the last 5 years, so back to 2016, and then he's priced it in Australian dollars, or dollary dues, as we love to call them, also known as the Great Pacific Peso, but then also priced it in Bitcoin. So if you're operating on dollars, then property prices are getting a lot more expensive. If you're operating on Bitcoin, property is continually getting cheaper. And this was really driven home to me looking at that and thinking about my own children who are young adults. Is the only way that generation is going to be able to afford to buy property is by saving in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That's save in Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is basically going up faster than property. Bitcoin is accruing more value than property. And that's the only way they'll own that asset. That's the first sort of thing. The second one, just to touch on your point about is essentially boomers, of which I'm apparently the arse end of the baby boomers. So I was born in 63, and I remember seeing. There was quite a while on Twitter where there was that OK boomer.
Oh yeah.
It was hilarious, right? And then
when you feel like you kind of are one, like seeing that. Is that what you mean?
So then I went, I wonder what the actual actual date range for boomers was.
Yeah.
Anyway, the last of the boomers was 64, and I went, holy shit, I'm actually a boomer. So then I became...
All right, Schiff.
So then I felt like I had a license to use it with impunity, which was great fun. But one of the things about the boomers is they're all going to die, obviously. But the older boomers who are in their 70s and 80s now, that generation will effect the greatest transfer of wealth in human history. So as they die,
Yeah.
all of their wealth flows down and out to, pay back debt and to go to typically children and offspring and charitable causes and things that they care about. The amount of money in that is absolutely gargantuan. But again, that comes back to for those people who have accrued assets. If you have been, if you have worked a manual job all your life and worked hard and are on the pension and have not accrued savings and don't own property, life is tough and it's going to get tougher. And that's where, that's why Bitcoin is so important.
Yeah.
I've said it a couple of times, that I'd rather another billion Bitcoiners before another billionaire Bitcoiner.
100%.
But we don't have control over those things.
Yeah.
All we can do is let our friends and family know that we know a bit about Bitcoin. We think it's good, and try and make them curious.
Yeah.
So can I go there for a second then? So personally, I've gone through this. You could ask, maybe you'd ask other people what I've gone through, but learning myself.
It's not infectious, though.
That's going to stick, isn't it? Damn. I've gone through this sort of process of not really understanding to sort of understanding and then not really understanding but telling people and then realizing what I was telling them wasn't 100% accurate and then learning and now to the point where I feel like I'm comfortable enough telling people and not providing financial advice but giving them good things to think about and make their own decisions. But when you're my question is really around the orange pilling of people. Is it the thing to do to continually go on at people, or do you think the best thing to do is to let people know that you are the Bitcoin person and let them come to you when they're because people are going to be forced to, right? They're going to have to adopt Bitcoin at some point, whether they want to or not, and hopefully people choose to, because that's the best time to do it when you choose to. But do you let people come to you, or do you try and save people? That I struggle with that every day.
Before you answer, Tim, the other question I've thought about that is that there's kind of this kind of.
Give us a time. Give us a time clock on that.
Did I just say?
That was a docs, yeah.
Who, you or? Oh, damn.
What was it?
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I got it.
It'll come out.
Yeah. It wouldn't be a 2-Bit Idiots podcast if there wasn't a docs.
And there's an extra idiot here tonight.
No, so there seems to be this. Obviously, there's the whole thing with doxing, which is quite ironic, but people that don't want to dox themselves. So Bitcoiners that can be almost your local kind of beacon or your friend's friend that is into Bitcoin. But then there's other people that don't want people to know that they're Bitcoiners. You know what I mean? So where's the balance there, if that makes sense? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. And I think that's everybody's individual decision. And certainly for me, I spent a lot of time listening and learning before I felt confident enough to start talking about it. There is a funny story about that. One of the many stupid stories about me.
Please go on, because we're never funny.
So I was on Twitter for a year or more, and I really didn't. I'd never used Twitter before Bitcoin, and I really didn't understand how Twitter was working, because when I tweet, no one would ever retweet it or like it or anything like that. It was just completely ignored, and I'm like, I am so not on point. Okay, I'll just keep watching and reading and listening and so on. So I did that, and then in about 2019, at the start of 2019, I got into Lightning. I was running a Lightning node. It was definitely early. It was #reckless for anything to do with Lightning. And for the first time, I thought, this is really important. Lightning is just going to be so important for Bitcoin. And so I presented on Lightning in Brisbane. And that was the first time I stood up as a Bitcoiner and presented, and it felt good to give back to the community a bit of education and things that I'd learned. And it was very new, so a lot of people came along and listened and so on. And there was one guy who came down from the back and, appreciated that, and we had a good chat. And at the time, he lived down on the Gold Coast, and, one weekend I went down there and we had beers, and he had a mate along. And she said, "Oh, are you on Twitter?" And I went, Yeah, I am. And she goes, "Oh, I'll follow you." And I went, she asked me what my handle was, and I went, "Oh yeah, it's BTC Shelling Point." And she's like, "Oh right, oh I can't follow you." I'm like, "Oh, why not?" She goes, "Oh, your account's private." I went, I'm careful about privacy. And she goes, No. If it's private on Twitter, no one can see anything you tweet. I went, "Oh, maybe that's why no one likes my stuff." So absolute clown.
But when did that change? Like, because I would guess that, like, I certainly became aware of you through Twitter. And then because obviously I heard about the Bush Bash, and I don't actually know, you were on a pod at some stage. You've been on a few. Maybe it was the back of the. Is that right?
I've only been on one before this.
Oh well, maybe that's the one I've listened. So were you talking about the Green Wallet Guide with someone?
Possibly. So I was on Citadel Dispatch with Matt and Catan.
There you go. Okay, so it must have been. So when was that? Like 2 years ago or something?
No. Citadel Dispatch is new, so it's only.
Oh, of course,
year,
so
I
it is.
think.
Maybe it was okay. So it must have been the. So when was the guide? When did you say the guide was?
Was
that 2 years ago?
Time slows down in
probably,
Bitcoin.
Probably a year before that.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe that's how it was then. And then I must have been aware of you through the
Yeah,
guide.
so the guide's in Citadel 21,
Yeah.
which is a Bitcoin magazine. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's good.
So it's all really raw content from plebs all over the world. If you're not aware of it, shout out to those guys, to Hodler Nort and Bitcoin Katia, who run that and put that together. Absolutely sensational. It is the raw beating heart of Bitcoin.
Yeah, nice.
That I credit that and Knut, as you spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
So his article, or his piece, and it said it's not Bitcoin is not just everything, the value of everything there is. It's everything there ever will be, because all value that's created after has to come within the 21 million as well. And that was, I mean, that's butchering what he said, but that blew my mind that there was two pieces that was one of them. And we're not going to the one just now, but that just it blew my. I literally had to go away for like 2 days and think about that.
I can almost imagine you kind of reading that, like the blue light in the dark in bed.
That's exactly what was happening. Were you
up
there? I was in bed with the blue light. That's true. It blew my mind and the reason it blew my mind is because I immediately knew it was true.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, once you get to that point and you fall over the side, you're like, holy shit, I'm gonna have to stack really fast. Like really fast. Because
the memes in Bitcoin are so powerful.
They
are
amazing.
That 21M divided by infinity.
Oh yeah.
Is
infinity
divided by 21M. I mean,
but do you have a point yourself that you actually the absolute dawn on you, holy shit moment? Like, do you know what that was?
I don't think they've stopped. One of the memes that really made me think was very similar to Knut's article, and it's the picture of a black hole with a Bitcoin symbol.
Yeah. And
coming in from the side is like it's the dollar and the bonds and everything getting sucked into it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it's the monetary premium of everything getting sucked into Bitcoin, not the value of everything.
Yes.
The monetary premium.
Yeah.
And so, we sit here in, your house. Houses have a utilitarian value, right? We raise our families here, we live here, we sleep here, we have fun and parties and,
It's a home.
It's a home, exactly.
Right.
So it has a utility value. Gold has a utility value, right? We use it in circuit boards and teeth, fillings and jewelry and so on. But the utility value is far less than the current market value because of the money printing.
Yes.
So, gold, however, is slightly different. it has, a 2,000-year history because it accrues value and keeps value over time, but not over space. It's shit over space. But Bitcoin has all of those properties and a couple of extra properties which just completely replace gold, basically.
Yeah.
So that beauty of seeing all the monetary value flow into Bitcoin, because Bitcoin has no utility value except money.
Yeah.
So all of the monetary value that's accrued to other things because of the money printing, so, stonks go up, houses go up, all of these things, because the money has to flow somewhere and it has to flow quickly, because otherwise the cantillionaires don't get their slice. So that meme, that's where my head went to that, and you just realise, yeah, this is a complete step change in money for society going forward, and we are just so early.
Yeah. So what I see off the back of that is that your house, everybody's houses become homes again, not and any NFT that's owning a house as an investment will ultimately move to a better investment. And that, I don't consider Bitcoin an investment, that's it. But it will move to a better, and there's no cost of maintaining your Bitcoin, not really, of maintaining there's a cost to maintaining a rental property. There are bills to be paid, there's tax to be paid.
There absolutely is a cost to maintaining investment properties. I'm thinking in particular of a mate who has some of the property shit coins. And
property shit coins, love
it. Property shit coins. So investment properties are property shit coins. And I remember talking to him with another mate a couple of years ago when Bitcoin was under 10,000 Aussie dollars, and we had the conversation about one of the properties in particular, which he probably could have sold for $250,000 then. So he could have had 25 Bitcoins out of it. Mm-hmm. So once you take, fees and taxes and blah, 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 25 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That could have been in his wallet now. But he's still got the property shitcoin. But the beauty is that he gets to complain about the tenants, the dishwasher breaking down, the cooker needing replacing, the roofing, the rates.
And every other tax, the region's going to put on you, right?
The tenants. And the list just goes on. And meanwhile, my only counter to him is, but you don't have to deal with the cost of all the storage of the Bitcoin, mate.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, there isn't any.
Yeah. Yes. So when I don't know what the value of investment property is, but it is astronomical, right? And when it starts to flood out of investment property and just be homes again, firstly, the value of homes is going to go down dramatically, because the demand is going to be back to, it will be normalized again. And the money is going to flow out of investment property into a stronger savings vehicle. Now, not all of it will go to Bitcoin. Other people will have their different ideas, but the smartest people in the room will put in Bitcoin. And what that's going to do to the price is going to blow people's mind, right?
And
I don't know when it happens.
No.
But once we go over the hill, there's no coming back.
Correct. My favorite Bitcoin chart, and I'm not a trader. The only trade I do is fiat for Bitcoin. But the only chart I really like, there's probably two. One is the 4-year chart for Bitcoin. So the first halving, second halving, third halving, fourth halving.
Yeah.
And the other one is the yearly chart. Now, the only yearly candles where Bitcoin has gone into the red is where it's done more than 100x in the prior year. So if you're holding Bitcoin and you need to pay, you're thinking about making money in the next week or the next month or the next year, Bitcoin's probably not for you. You probably need to pick something else. But if you're looking for savings and for the longer term, and I'm closer to retiring than I am to starting my working life.
He's 21. He's just got 1 million Bitcoins.
I wish. then there is no better asset to protect your earnings and to protect your future purchasing power. And so I hope that that flow out of property does occur, and it'll be particularly rough in Australia because all of the banks prop property up. But it'll make property affordable for our kids.
Yeah.
And that has to happen.
Totally.
That has to happen one way or another.
Not just because the price is going up, but the quality is going down. No, that's happening too. Like it's the shrinkflation. Your bag of chips, crisps, I like to call, is smaller. That's
your Mars bars.
Your Mars bar's smaller.
Mars bars
Your Big Mac is a little Mac. All these things are. The price goes up with the.
Do you know what? Actually, this was like my last dog. So a couple of years ago, I bought this bloody expensive dog food that he would only eat. And then all of a sudden, it was a 15-kilo bag for $120.
Yeah.
It became a 12-kilo bag for $130. This is a couple of years ago. But new packaging. So, a new, easy-to-open package.
Okay, yeah, right. But here's the thing, right? Most people, almost everybody, looks at that and says, fucking manufacturer's screwing me. It isn't. They are just surviving. That's all they can do because they are being hit by the money printer too, right?
Well, now, yeah.
Yeah, maybe not. I think you're perhaps a little bit generous too.
Oh, I mean,
to some of them.
yes.
There's absolutely some.
Oh, the gouge, of course.
Yeah.
But also you have to remain competitive in your market, and a lot of that is what's happening there too. The chart, back to the charts very brief. I only care about one chart. And that's the 200 week moving average chart. Yep. That's the only one that matters to me.
200 week or 200 day?
No, 200 week, because 200 weeks is 4 years. 4 years is a Bitcoin halving cycle.
Sorry, gotcha.
Right? So that's all that matters. You go and look at the chart. It's the only one that matters. It's a line. It's a line.
It's the one that's mattered until now, and I think that's
go on then.
Well,
go there.
I think I'm going to go there. So that's kind of the interesting thing now is all this conversation about supercycle. What that really talks about is that the importance of the halving cycle in the Bitcoin price diminishes. So up until now, we've seen these sort of boom bust cycles, albeit in a very clear upward trend, but very easily trackable back to halvings and subsequent bull runs, which we're clearly in at the moment. But as different forces come into play, then the effect of the halving potentially reduces, and other economic effects have a larger proportionate impact on price.
Like a $1 trillion stimulus package in the States or something like that, an external factor.
Yeah, that and other things like a Bitcoin spot ETF being approved in larger markets, allowing institutional funds, particularly pension funds, to put a portion in. So if you look at the bond market, and other far more knowledgeable people have talked about this, people like Lynn Olden and Preston Pish and Greg Foss and others, is that I think Lynn Olden made this comment the other day, that all bonds at the moment now have a negative real yield, including for the first time in history, junk bonds. So junk bonds are refer to the higher risk corporate bonds, which institutions are not allowed to buy because they're not a sufficiently high credit grading, but they've had a higher yield and they've never had a net negative real yield. They do now. So
you understand that, Brendo? Like, I don't mean to be rude.
No.
Tim, can you just dig into that a little bit? For the listeners too.
I only really started to understand that this year because, as I was saying over dinner, how have I got to 50 and not understood money?
So if you
Bitcoin,
have
Bitcoin,
if you have a
Bitcoin's
bond that's paying a 5% yield, Well, you also got to deduct the inflation.
Well, at the moment, if you go to the
Or
central bank in Australia, they're paying 0.25%
Right.
yield, and inflation in Australia is probably running at 4% officially.
Yeah.
So
That's
you've
kind of
got, so you've got a net negative a net real yield of minus 3.75%. So
it's a guaranteed loss. A guaranteed loss.
In purchasing power, you're going backwards.
Yeah.
You're just going. You may be going backwards slower than other people are going backwards, but you're still going backwards.
No, so we talked about that a pod or two ago, I think, as far as basically you're paying for an assured loss rather than it being a worse
so
loss.
there is.
Yes?
I think there is this might be dated now too, but I think there was when we were talking about it, there was $18 trillion of negative yielding bonds. So that is something that's already a negative yield. Like you look at it and it's offering you a negative. So you put in $1,000, you get back. You go back to collect it, and whenever you collect it, you get 990 back.
Yep.
Guaranteed loss.
Yep.
But what Wiz is talking about is things that are further out the risk spectrum. So you're taking on more risky. You're buying a more risky bond, but even when you go out the risk spectrum, when you factor inflation into the equation,
negative.
You're still negative.
Okay.
That's Lynn's point, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Which is and
So the bond market is 100 trillion.
yeah.
So if you're a pension fund and you're now looking at the biggest drawdown over the next 30 years as all the baby boomers retire, and instead of becoming net contributors into the stonks market, they start to draw that back.
Yeah, right.
At the same time as they're drawing back on their pension. So
And that's not even negotiable. Like that's happening. Like there's no
absolutely. It's just as Greg Foss says, it's just math. It's not complicated.
Yeah.
Right. So then, where's that coming from? Well, they've got to sell down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but they need I think it's an 8% year-on-year return to meet their obligations through to 2050.
So where are you finding the 8%?
Where are they finding 8%? They're not getting 8% from anywhere. Right, so that's why all these hedge funds are getting money poured into them, because they're doing exciting / crazy things, losing lots of money, but sometimes making spectacularly. But if you're a pension fund, then you're trying to figure out a way to make 8% this year, and then you've got to make 8% next year, and you've got to do that for the next 30 years, just to pay out the people that have been paying into your fund for the last 50. For all their working life, they're now going to live for another 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah, wow.
So what I think is interesting there is previously Bitcoiners just now are people who cared enough to look, right? It's pushing into the market where people are forced to look because they, like your guys who work in the bond market or pension fund managers, or they have to look now. Because they're forced to.
Well, yeah, they're interested to, they're motivated to, but it's only since Bitcoin gets to a viable financial asset size, which realistically is $1 trillion and upwards. So it's only just got there.
Yeah.
Then they're starting to look at it and going, yeah, that becomes an investable asset class. But they don't look at it like we look at it.
No.
They talk about Sharpe ratios and CAGR and lots and lots of other things, and that's where funds like companies like Monochrome here in Australia, who are trying to launch bitcoins for the first Bitcoin spot ETF in Australia, they're doing an incredible amount of work on a technical side.
Can you give a shout out to whoever that is? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a shout out to Monochrome.
Yeah.
So that's run by Jeff Yu. Who's built a fantastic team around him, not just of Bitcoiners, researchers, but also finance folk from the traditional finance world who understand how the finance world thinks and what they need to know and understand in order to be able to consider a small allocation of Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. So,
they're not
managing other people's money is not like managing your own money.
Right.
And this is where
the little guy wins.
This is where the little guy wins. Where we can just go, hey, I've had a few whiskeys. I'm feeling bullish. I think I might buy some Bitcoin. Smash buy. Happy days. We're done.
Right.
Now, if the three of us are the investment committee for other people's money, we look at it 14 ways to Sunday, and we might spend 8 months doing that.
Yeah.
There is no smash buy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And that at one level, that's a really good thing because, you know, as someone who's founded a company and built a company over time, you absolutely do feel a sense of responsibility to the people who work for you, and the idea of having to lay them off and for them to lose their jobs when you know you've met their partners and you know their children and you know they've just bought a house and all those sorts. That's incredibly stressful. But managing other people's money is the same thing, but at an even bigger scale. So you want those people to be careful and prudent. That's why those regulations exist. But
the impact of that, should they allocate 0.5% or 1%, is massive.
Yeah, it's kind of like I don't know what the correct allocation for you is, but I know it's not zero.
Yes, yes. Because even if it's just that you're trying to get to your 8% that you require, then, you know, if Bitcoin is outperforming, I mean, Bitcoin, by a 1% allocation of Bitcoin for these guys could just, well, all that they really care about is how they're perceived against their competitors, right? They want to give a good service, but the as a competitive environment, so they want to be seen as doing well against their competitors. Yeah, right. Yeah. So once, if they can allocate X percentage to Bitcoin, and that at 40% running Bitcoin can balance the whole portfolio up to 8.
That was irrespective of what you think about Plan B's model and modelling various models. He did an interesting piece of work probably in late 2019 where he looked at a portfolio of 99% cash and 1% Bitcoin. And it outperformed pretty much every bloody...
Oh, never seen that. That's really
every thing. You go and have a look for it. But really, really simple. So you just go, okay, well, I'll buy T-bills and 1% Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And it just illustrates that incredibly asymmetric upside. And as Andy Edstrom says in his book, Why Buy Bitcoin, and he's a chartered financial planner, right? So he's very measured, and again,
he's required to be thoughtful.
He's required to be thoughtful.
Yep.
Yeah, he has a fiduciary duty to his clients, and rightly so. And that's if you haven't dealt with managing other people's money, it's a difficult thing to communicate. But that asymmetric upside kind of demands that as a financial planner, you are providing at least some small exposure. Now, whether that's through buying stocks in Riot or Marathon or MicroStrategy, or whether it's getting exposure to one of the Canadian Bitcoin ETFs, or hopefully in Australia through a Bitcoin ETF in Australia, such as Monochrome, or some other mechanism, they're unlikely to be able to directly hold. But the asymmetric upside is really, really important. And whilst I'm not a fan of the big institutions per se buying, pension funds in particular, or superannuation funds as we call them in Australia, they're the ones who give the returns to the school teachers and the nurses and the tradies, because in Australia we have mandatory superannuation. Now you get to choose where it goes, which is a great thing, but the same root problem exists. You know, that their returns are being inflated away too, and unless they've got a bit of Bitcoin in their portfolios, they're going to have trouble paying out as well.
Yeah, Brendan, give me a time check, would you? Because I want to. If we go too long, we might have to run into another one.
Well, we are about an hour 20.
Okay, cool. We're good just now. So where we were before, where we were talking about was, the super cycle. Then Where do you sit on that? I don't know where I think. I don't really know. I mean, I think it's inevitable. You're talking about Plan B. Plan B's model has proven to be quite accurate to date, right? And he himself says it's just a model, and at some point it'll break.
Everyone's saying to the upside.
I think it's that I look at Plan B's model as a floor price for Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
That's how I read it, and I think it breaks to the upside. Now the question for me, the only question for me, is what cycle it breaks to the upside.
Yeah, I'd go with I'd go with
And a time check on that. Sorry, mate.
yeah, I'd go with BTC econometrics analysis that, you know, the floor FLAW in Plan B's model is pretty substantial mathematically. However, as a broad observation that as supply reduces and demand increases, price goes up. Well, you know, I think we all, you know, don't have too much trouble with that. That's a basic law of economics. The danger is in the time and the price prediction. So, personally, my time frame is end of the decade. Bitcoin price is going to do what Bitcoin price is going to do. So, looking backwards at those, you know, those 3 or 4 halving candles, they're all big fat green candles. The most interesting chart I've seen come out this year is the spiral one.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen that
Yes,
one?
I have.
Yeah,
So
that is cool. Actually.
that's really interesting, just as a tracking mechanism. Now, whether it continues on in the same way, I suspect it will, but whether it's predictive, no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not here to
I think-
trade. I'm like,
No, I think you're bold. I think it's very bold to try and predict Bitcoin price.
yeah, I mean, I mean, for me, logically, it should be the final cycle should be today or yesterday or 3 years ago when it was obvious to a lot of people, but it won't be because we have to just because all of a sudden you understand something doesn't mean that everybody else understood it on the same day, right? So you're like,
absolutely. I thought the funniest thing for me, leading into the halving cycle in 2020, that was the first one that I was, as a Bitcoiner, aware of what was going on and watching all the discussion on Twitter. Hilarious. The idea that it was all priced in was just laughable.
yeah,
You know, and that really comes back to information asymmetry, right? You think, for me, you know, there was probably 3 or 4 touches for Bitcoin before I went and scratched in earnest and bought some and then started learning. And that's probably, you know, you've probably heard that story many times from many Bitcoiners. And whilst most people in the world have probably heard of Bitcoin, they might be able to spell it. They might know that the C isn't a capital C. They might know it's one word, not 2 words. But that's it. They've had one touch.
Yeah.
Have they got to the point where they've gone and had a little scratch? Nah.
Yeah.
We're so early.
Yeah.
So for me, it's far more important that we've passed the inflection point at which Bitcoin is inevitable, and I believe we're long past that. So I'm less interested in when it becomes fully adopted than I am in smoothing the path to see that happen. 100%,
because as we spoke about before, if you're going up in the rocket, that's wonderful, but you're watching planes fall out the sky. And I've got no interest in watching planes fall out the sky, because I want to eat and I want my friends' children to, you know, have a comfortable life where they can manage. Or everybody's children, everyone. So the more
back
people,
to that Titanic analogy where we're in the lifeboat trying to get everyone else on the lifeboat.
that's it. You're screaming for people to get on,
Yeah,
some of them are dancing.
Yeah, well, so back to your first question, Hats, I think, was, you know, do you yell at people? And I've never found yelling at people to be effective.
So can I just jump in there for a second? There's a Scottish thing that says never. Let me get this right. Never in the history of Camden has somebody been told to calm down. Right? Never happened. Never happened. So, and I love that saying. It's a good saying.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't, that doesn't work. You have to go at somebody. That's not even the right terminology either. But like, you have to approach the topic with somebody on an issue that they care about.
Yeah, and I mean, some friends I've talked to and told them that I was really interested in Bitcoin, and they might find it interesting too, and but I don't generally push hard. People are either interested and ready or not, and they'll be ready in their own time. And I'm a big believer that it's important to let people know that when that you're a guy or a woman that you're happy to answer their questions on Bitcoin. When your friend or your family member gets curious, they know that you're a safe person to come and ask, and you won't mock them for asking all of the 25,000 questions that all Bitcoiners ask.
Other than saying you buy in at the price you deserve.
No, you don't say that.
I'm kidding.
we laugh about that on Twitter, but that's not the thing to say.
No,
in my
I
view,
know.
not the thing to say.
I did say that to my brother, actually.
Yeah.
I don't think he appreciated it.
No, and I have some. I mean,
But we all ask those questions about, well, can't the government ban it? What happens if the internet gets turned off?
Yeah, totally. Totally.
What happens if SHA-256 gets broken? Well,
Quantum computing, my modes.
all of those things, and they're all good questions to ask,
Yeah.
and you need to dig into them. And once you get the answer and you're comfortable, like, 1,000 people 1,000 times smarter than me have already dug into this, and I've read some of that stuff, and I'm like, tick next.
Yeah.
I love when somebody new comes at Twitter, obviously. When somebody new comes in and they ask a question, and the positivity of answer below the question is just great,
Totally.
right?
Totally.
Almost 100%, right?
Yeah. Asked in good faith, absolutely.
I have no problem with people not understanding. No problem whatsoever.
Absolutely. All the time in the world. And I spend probably too much time on
With
Twitter.
strangers, complete strangers, right?
Well, yeah, there are new Bitcoiners.
Yes.
I don't think of them as strangers, just new Bitcoiners, and they're
Well,
curious. And,
even my solar question, like yesterday, when you jumped in, and then I had some other guys jumping in about kind of, how to potentially tackle it, which is kind of
cool.
really
I
cool.
didn't see that. I'll need to go back and read that because that's really cool. But yeah, if you come in with a humility, and you come in with a genuine question.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no toxicity. There's no
wanna help.
toxicity in the room.
Yeah.
Right. It's great. Can I ask you a question about what we're doing here, Brendo and I?
Yeah.
What do you feel about this? Is this like?
This is awesome. So this is a great example of people doing what they can. And I'm full of admiration for you guys doing it. And
Sorry, that wasn't what
and
the session for, but I
have-
genuinely want to know.
No, I have loved listening to the pod. And I'm very honoured to be asked to be on it.
Mate.
Oh, listen.
That's
We're
great
not.
fun.
That's the pleasure is definitely ours. But it's. So I struggled personally for a while about. So I had a Twitter profile that was my name, and then I all of a sudden realised I was only tweeting about Bitcoin. And
You mean you have another name apart from Hat?
I do stacking. But I struggled for a while, going, what can I do? I don't know. I'm not technical. I'm not. I went through all the things I couldn't do, right? And I was like, I want to contribute. I want to get a job in Bitcoin. What can I? And then at that time, I was like looking at the job. I'm not capable of some of these things that are being advertised. And then I ended up creating a little website, and then Brendo came into my life.
Do I need to leave you two alone for a while?
Please don't. And then we started doing this, and we have no goal here. We've spoken about that we should have a goal.
Why though? Just do this.
Yeah, and just see what happens. I mean,
Yeah.
No, look, what you're doing is you're talking about your experiences about coming into Bitcoin and about learning Bitcoin, and that is a common experience for every new wave of Bitcoiners.
Yeah.
So I listen to a lot of Peter McCormack's podcasts because he came in the same kind of cycle that I did in 2017, made the same sort of mistakes. I didn't make quite the same
Very publicly.
magnitude of catastrophic mistakes he made. But yeah, I made the mistake of shitcoining and eventually figured it out a little bit quicker than Peter. But
Hi, Peter.
the thing I really admire about Peter is he's been very public about it.
Yeah.
And that's been a wonderful lesson for a lot of people. So you either learn by reading or listening or watching other people make mistakes and go, thanks for that lesson. I don't need to pay the tuition fee now.
Do you know what? Yeah.
Or you go, yeah, whatever, dude. I'm way smarter than you. And then you go and have to pay your tuition fee.
But I agree with that. I know a lot of people don't like Peter McCormack. I'm not sure that you're a massive fan, Hats, but I do admire the fact that he's an open book. You know what I mean? Like,
No, I respect. I respect.
But my point about Peter is that very smart guy. Knows exactly what he's doing, and he brought through a whole wave of Bitcoiners from that era, from 2017. Now, Bitcoiners didn't stop coming into Bitcoin in 2017, right? So the newer podcasts, you will attract a different group, and they will be the Bitcoiners coming in now who came in 2019 and 2020 and 2021, right? And they're just at the beginning of their journeys, and they're going, how's all this work? Where do I find my information? Who do I listen to? And having that conversation that you guys have, and I've loved the conversations you have with Camilla and with EP16 and others.
The guests have been wonderful, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really good. I loved it.
And they help others gain confidence in asking questions and answering questions and where to go to. It's everyone contributes in a way that they're comfortable with. Now, I don't think I could run a podcast, but I really enjoy contributing to helping run the Bush Bash, right? And that's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, let's go there. Let's go there.
And it kind of helps. I think it helps. It helps the Australian Bitcoiners.
Massively.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would just very quickly like to say I have been super critical of Peter, but I still listen to Peter's podcasts.
Yeah,
right?
I do.
So that tells you what. And don't look at what I say. Look at what I do.
Yeah.
I have still got something to learn from Peter's podcasts. So I will continue to be critical where I think it's necessary. But I hope he is of me if that's ever a requirement. If I'm ever outline or whatever, I hope he comes at me. But so I think it's okay to be critical. I think I like the criticism of everyone because it keeps everyone honest.
What's an ex-pub?
Yeah, look, the thing.
You want to go there?
Yeah, look.
No, but you know
Peter,
what? Sorry,
Peter takes the
good.
piss sometimes, right? But what Peter does, and this is speaking from a business perspective as someone who's worked in business development for a while. Peter never forgets who his customer is.
Yeah.
Right. So his customer is his mate that he goes and drinks with down the pub.
Yes.
Who's bought
Yeah.
£100 worth of Bitcoin, doesn't really understand it. What's the wallet thing about? What are you fucking talking about a node, right? Those are the people that he talks to in his pods.
And that's a massive market, right?
And he has never forgotten his
growing.
audience.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, good point.
And that's my point. And so, you go through Peter McCormack, it's great. I've learned lots and lots, and he's a great interviewer, and he's got better, and he has some great guests. But then you go, actually, I want some more meat. I don't just want the fries, right? I want to listen to Stefan Rivera. I want to listen to finance. I want to listen to Preston Pish. I want to listen to some of the Swan Bitcoin guys. I want to listen to people from different parts of the world. I want to listen to Daniel Prince.
Yep.
There's just, even looking back 4 years, back to 2017 when I came in, the quality of the material available now is just sensational.
So good. So good. All right, let's go Bush Bash.
And you guys are adding to that. Good on you.
Well, I think, okay, let's not say we have to have a goal. I just want to do something that's beneficial to people, right? That's my goal. And I think we're not going to be the technical guys, going to go watch Stefan or Matt or whatever, but, or listen, I should say, but, yeah, I'm just trying to work out what it is exactly that we can contribute, and to provide that to people. And then people can make their own decision.
But the fact that you're not a technical guy
that's maybe part of what I can contribute, right?
Is
Or
absolutely
we, excuse me.
typical. So, you should learn how to run a node,
Yeah.
right? And talk about that.
Yeah.
And then once you've worked out how to run a node, why is it important?
Yeah. And
And
what was
then-
actually difficult?
And what was difficult,
Yeah.
or what was not difficult?
Yeah.
And you run different nodes, and how do they compare?
Yeah.
And then what did you learn out of it? So we were talking before a bit, Brendo. My first node was a Casa node. I think they built them on a Raspberry Pi 3, which was pretty fucking dodgy. But then the 4s came out in the node packages, and I ran a My node. That thing was just a treasure trove of learning opportunities.
So many apps.
Like, what the fuck is this mempool thing?
Yeah.
What's an Explorer?
Yeah.
Holy crap! There's all this stuff in
Yeah.
here. Oh,
Have you got the 4 gig Raspberry Pi or the 8?
I've got a number of Raspberry Pis.
Oh, okay, all right.
Right.
I wanted to get an 8,
He's
and,
a
and
product
they're
girl.
all out of stock at the moment.
Yep.
I'm like, shit.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So all of those things are great for me. They were great learning opportunities because I'm a tinkerer. I like to learn by doing, and sometimes that accounts for the large quantity of scar tissue.
The tuition fees.
The tuition fees. Thank you, Brendo.
The fuck up theory.
yeah. So, but the nice thing is then that for me that embeds those lessons, and then I feel confident talking to other people about them.
Yeah.
I don't feel confident talking to other people about stuff that I haven't used and wouldn't recommend.
Yeah, fair enough. All right.
So you're about to talk to other people at Murrurundi. So let's tell people what that is firstly, and what your role in it is, and what's going to be happening in the next one. Can we go there?
Yeah. So generally, we turn up at Murrurundi. Brendo brings the Rehypnol for hats. And then we
It would have
and
to.
then we take
He
turns
didn't
of
know that
shaving.
last year, and you've just...
It would have to be that way, though. It would have to
Oh,
be
we
that way,
don't
right?
talk about that. Oh, sorry.
Jesus.
So the whole Bitcoin Bush Bash was it came out of a conversation that I had with Hodelon comrades who lives down in Canberra, and I live up in Brisbane, and we're good mates. And last year with all the lockdowns, eventually the gracious overlord in Queensland looked like she was going to open up the border at the start of November or end of October. And at the beginning of October, I rang Hodelon comrades, and I said to him, "Hey, what was that place that you and your mate Sir Hugo go to for playing golf and get on the piss and get away from the wives for a weekend?" And he said, "Oh, Murrurundi." And I said, "Where the hell's that?" So I've jumped onto Google Maps and looked at Murrurundi, and guess what? It's halfway between Canberra and Brisbane. I said, "Look, how about first weekend in November, we go down to Murrurundi, and you, me, and Sir Hugh, we can have a few beers, talk the corn, and have a bit of fun for the weekend." And he's like, "That's a great idea, Wiz." And so, done deal. Happy days. 2 days later, buddy, his lordship, Hodelon Comrades, has created a website, bitcoinbushbash.info, tweeted it out and said, "Yeah, Wizard of Oz and me are meeting up for a few beers on the first weekend in November. It'll be good fun. It's in Murrurundi. Here's the website. Contact either of us you'd like to come."
I remember that post too.
I did too.
And I remember looking at that post going, what the fuck? Anyway, I've jumped onto the website and gone, fuck, he's created a website and everything. He's popped a couple of accommodation venues up there and happy days. Anyway, so all of a sudden, started getting DMs from all these randos on Twitter that I'd never heard of. Yeah, including you two guys. And people, adding their name and plenty of people who didn't. And so those that were happy, to have their name added to the website, we just, clink, 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 clink. So it was about, I don't know, 15, 20 people said they might come. It was like, oh, we should probably do some. And someone said, oh, is it going to be in presentations? And we thought, oh, maybe there should be some presentations. Yeah. So we talked to a few people who we knew were coming, and a few of them were happy to present, and we picked a bunch of topics. And then we rolled up at the pub at the Railway Hotel in Murrurundi, and on Friday night there was, I don't know, it was about 8 of us, and we had a few beers and went to bed. I woke up in the morning, and we weren't sort of kicking off till late morning, and it was not like any other event I've ever been involved with, which is, meetups and some corporate events and some fairly big conferences as well. But usually with those, it's 100 say they're going to come, 60 will turn up. But this was the opposite, and it's turned out to be the case ever since. So there was about 15 to 20 said they'd come, around about 40 turned up.
Yeah.
And we ate the hotel out of steak over the 2 days.
Yeah.
That was a particular accomplishment.
Do you know what was impressive too? Is that they handled the shit out of those orders, I think.
Yeah, it was good.
But it was quick. It was. I was expecting this tiny backwater town with a pub kitchen to not be able to handle it, but they were just like bang, 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 bang.
Yeah.
Other than running out of steak, but
yeah. So
kudos to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for 2 days, they gave us the whole back room in the pub, outdoor area, overhead projector, and we talked about Bitcoin. So there were presentations from sort of midday to late afternoon. They included presentations on Bitcoin custody. There was JP Technology from Sydney and Catan came. They demonstrated the Blockstream satellite. So we actually set the satellite up in the beer garden, and then did some transactions and saw them received on the Blockstream satellite. We talked about Liquid. We talked about HODL, which had just launched lending at that point. There was lots and lots of things we sort of presented and talked about, but mainly it was just a whole bunch of Bitcoiners meeting each other and not having to have the early stage discussion of, there's only 21 million of them.
Yeah.
Did you know that Bitcoins are divisible into 100 million satoshis?
You feel like you stepped into a room where you could talk to people immediately, right? It was really comfortable.
It was really comfortable,
it
was a lot of fun and a lot of great bonds, and it was after being there for that weekend, and it's about a 12-hour drive or 10-hour drive back to Brisbane. I really thought about that weekend a lot, and I wrote that article, Gather Your Tribe, on Citadel 21 as well. And it was partly inspired by the weekend and partly inspired by reading Brandon Quittem's article on the fourth turning, which was an essay.
Oh, Ben talked about that last week. The fourth turning. Yeah.
So it was an essay summarising a book, basically.
Yeah.
But generally reflecting that history moves in cycles, and those cycles are generally of a 80 to 90 year duration, and we're coming into the fourth cycle now, which kind of started in around 2008. Therefore, it's going to run. The whole cycle is 80 years.
Yeah.
So the cycle will run through to the end of this decade, about the end of 2030.
Yep.
And is typically one with chaos and destruction and, you know, a reordering of the world. And it certainly feels like that over the last couple of years. But at the time, you know, there was that in the back of my mind. There was also the incredible bonding and camaraderie and shared values and animated discussion and challenging discussions with Bitcoiners from all over Australia who came. And that really brought home to me about the importance of building bonds with people you can trust when times are tough. And kind of like buying insurance, you can't buy insurance when the house is on fire. You buy insurance in case the house is on fire. And for that same reason, you know, doing things like the Bush Bash, where you get the opportunity to meet other Bitcoiners, more experienced, smarter in, you know, most areas, and to talk to those guys and women and learn from them and sharpen, you know, steel sharpens steel or iron sharpens iron, whichever way you like to put it. Your knowledge just goes up incrementally so quickly. Yeah. And I've just gained so much from it. So it's one of those things I've been keen to encourage and support. And we've done 3 this year. Yeah. So we did the one in Murrurundi first weekend in November last year. The Victorians couldn't come to that one, so we did one in Beechworth in the autumn, and then we did one in the winter in Yeppoon up in Queensland. Unfortunately, none of the southern states could come up to that one, and then we're back to Murrurundi for the early summer. This one, so based on how the last few went, I suspect there'll be 3 a year going forward if there's interest.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that'll be
kudos to you and Hodlon comrades for getting it happening and organising it and continuing to push it, I suppose.
Well, that's just back to what you contribute, isn't it? Just like it doesn't matter what, it doesn't really matter what you do. It's just that you do. You know, like just work out what it is that you think is you possibly have and offer that. Yeah. And it's I mean we went and we loved it. I mean it was the first time for me. I'd been years watching crazy people on YouTube and talking to myself basically, and
then you get to go and have beers with the crazy people.
Yeah, well that's it. Yeah, totally. They were, and I was like, "Whoa, there's crazier people than me. This is great."
All of a sudden, I'm so normal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it was. The world is changing in the sense that we're so connected online, but there is still a value to have, you know, face-to-face contact and just looking people in the eye and just trying to work out yourself what you think that they think and taking their advice or taking their whatever they have to say and then critically analysing that yourself and then going away and thinking. And I spent a lot of time after the back of the thanks to yourself. I mean, really, I went away thinking I need to be better. I can be better here. I need to start to be better. So thank you. I mean, that's just as an aside, but it was great. So I would encourage anyone who's thinking about it, come along. It's very welcoming.
Well, no, don't come along this week because I think all the accommodation.
Well, yeah, bring a tent. Bring a tent because we've booked out the whole town. But,
or some floaties.
Oh yeah, bring yeah, exactly. What do you call it? But
all right, we should probably wrap this up. This is like almost 2 hours. So,
all right.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us your handle or anything about yourself that you want to share?
You're more than welcome if you want to follow my ship posting on Twitter. So my Twitter handle is BTC Shelling Point, SCHLELLINGPT on Twitter. My handle name is WizardofAus. And some people have asked, where's that come from? It's like, are you like a technical wizard? And I'm like, no, think more like the old bloke behind the curtain. Yeah. Is closer to the actual analogy.
That's great. All right, anything else, Hats?
No, mate, I thank you. I genuinely love this. It's great to have you here as the first, you know, real person in my
studio guest.
Yeah,
live guest. Yeah.
What do you think of the studio? It's great, right?
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. Really appreciate it. You're welcome anytime. and we'll look forward to seeing you, Miranda.
Well, we will in a week.
And to echo your most famous episode, were we right, boys?
Yeah, we're right.
Yeah, we're right.
Hey guys, if you've made it this far, thanks so much for listening. The plan with the pod is to do sort of guests one week and myself and Brendo the other week, so hopefully that's working for you. If you don't like one of them, just listen to the one you do like. If you want a little bit more information from us, you can find it at bitcoin-first.com/learn.